Hey everyone, Andrew here. It's here to show you my knife collection, current update. So let's get started. A little bit about me. Name's Andrew. I was born in the Canadian Arctic, grew up there most of my life, moved here to Edmonton about 10 years ago, been a cook for the past 20 years. Started working in kitchens as a teenager, just dishwashing. Of course, I love knives. They're the tool of the trade, iconic tool of the trade. So, a few people wanted to see what I got. Figured pretty much now is a good time to update. Don't mind me, it's my day off. So, finally got time to do all this and try to enjoy it at the same time. But, yeah, what got me into knives? Well, shitty knives. Good knives got me into shitty knives got me into good knives. Right? Because, when you work in a kitchen, maybe they got their house knives, but they're never sharp. They're beaters, tossed around and whatnot. But I got a first Victorinox when I was young, and after that, I first seen Global knives, and they were like, oh wow, these things are like so sharp. They stay sharp for a long time. They're amazing. But that's because, I didn't really know anything else. So, once I took the delve into the handmade Japanese knives, there's no looking back. I still like Global. Everyone has their opinions, but they're what they are. So, but what really kicked it off for me for the Japanese handmade carbon steel knives were these Moritaka. Moritaka Homono, 700 years history, great value for really awesome quality. And this, along with this one, were my first handmade Japanese carbon steel knives. This is the 240 millimeter Aogami Super Kuritsuke, and I've pretty much semi-retired this one because it's seen a lot of action. I learned how to thin and polish and sharpen on this one, so it's worn down a bit, but it's still fucking awesome. So I just use it at home more than anything. Got these Sayas, this Saya is made by Ming Sayas, based out of BC in Canada. Walnut. Just basic walnut, nothing fancy. Most of my knives, they're pretty nice and all, but nothing too crazy, like no unicorn, I guess you could say no Hanyaki, It's a humble size collection. So, this here is the 180 millimeter Deba, Ryo Deba, I guess you would say, because it's a double bevel, Aogami Super. Let's just say pretty much all my Moritaka, except for one, are Aogami Super. And I actually, after using this, I prefer using single bevel Deba. But this is still an awesome knife, and of course I'm still going to keep it. This is actually great for things like turkey, maybe cutting, trimming fat off big cuts of beef and various things. I've got their Honosuke. You can see I've had this one quite a bit too because it's been significantly thinned out and the bevel's widened. The Shinogi line is raised right up there. Okay. This is the thicker of my double bevel Honosuke. You'll see the other ones eventually. This one here is a 240mm Sujihiki. Not to be confused with what they have and they call a Yanagiba, which is all their knives are double bevel. But I find the difference between what they call a Suji and what they have as a Yanagiba is the blade height. The Yanagiba they do seem to look a little shorter from what I've seen on the specs for the sizes and lengths. So this here is a 240mm Sujihiki. And all my knives have size. Going from the 240 CG, let's get into the 270mm CG. Now this one, like I said, their CGs have a different height. And when you go from a 240 to a 270, not only is the length, but the height also matches up in comparison. So I actually had to get a custom saya for that one. This one has their walnut handle. Now, go from the Sujis and stuff to this beast of a monster. The 220mm Tsukubocho. Oh, excuse me. It's a bad boy. You know what I mean? Big chopper. Get me to the chopper. Right? It's not a meat cleaver by any means, but it has a pretty beefy spine. It's got a lot of heft to it. You know, I find the Gyotos, even a 270 and whatnot. I like the feel because they're more nimble, but this is still a very fun knife to use. Like, it's fucking badass. And I got that from Tony at Tokushu Knife. He was awesome enough to make sure I get one, and it has the walnut handle. Next up is their 240mm Gyoto. This one I ordered directly from Moritaka, so I was able to get it engraved. And there it says Frosty, who is my number one dog. I have two now, but Frosty is my first boy, so had to get something to dedicate to him. And next up, the bigger brother is the 270mm Gyoto. And like I said with the CDs, not only is the length, but the height. Extra comparison. This one I did also order directly from Moritaka. And they did stamp it. Engraved stamp or whatever. I also put Nanook, which means polar bear in my language, Inuktitut. But it's not as noticeable as the Frosty. I'll say that. Still pretty awesome. You know, polar bear, big knife, that guy from the north. Great. This here is the 270mm Kuritsuke. It's another big badass blade. $270mm Kuritsuke. Now, you seen I had a 240mm Kuritsuke. Well, that was my first one ever, so I wore it down a bit, so I just couldn't help but get a brand new one. And then that way I could still bring this to work. You know, first one holds a lot of sentimental value, being my first handmade Japanese knife. And this saya is actually a Shibata Kotetsu saya, but I just slightly modified it. Just had to cut this back a bit so it would fit in there. But it fits in there real nice. and it was easy to pick up from knifeware. So that was awesome. Next I have some petties. So this is their 150 millimeter petty knife. Ta-da! Right, see they're all worn down. They're not worn down, but they all see their action. It's the 150 millimeter. Now this one I've had for only like a couple years, and I didn't really use it much. I figured I was gonna thin it, so you know, like, because I tried to sharpen the edge, it wasn't really getting sharp. Not where I wanted to use, so I figured I'd like, when I get the time, I'll thin it and sharpen it. And finally had the time. Maybe you've seen the post, but finally had time to do that, and it was crazy because like Moritaka's steel treatment is fucking awesome. You know, so, but this one was like a dud. No matter how much I was thinning it, it just wasn't, it didn't feel like it was taking a steep edge. You know, I couldn't see the core steel popping. But that's what happens in the world of handmade knives, is that, you know, there's human error. So I brought this to their attention. I just messaged or emailed Akiko Moritaka, and she's very awesome to deal with. She's like, oh, like that shouldn't happen. But if it did happen, we're sorry about that. You know, like maybe it overheated or wasn't heated enough. Well, they're working on it. So she was awesome enough to just refund me for it because I couldn't send it back for them to inspect it because of the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. You know? But that's, at least, you know, like they stand behind their product, and if you have an issue, they'll hear what you have to say. So all of those are Yanagiba Super, and like I said, I only have one that isn't, and that is this blue number 2 petty knife, 150 millimeter. You can see it's quite shiny or polished compared to the other ones. It did start out as a Kuruchi finish. It was a gift to someone, but they couldn't really keep care of carbon steel, so I was keeping care, like maintaining it for them, you know, anytime it needed polishing or sharpening. But I was like, hey, look, like, how about I'll trade you one of my stainless clad knives, which would be easier for you to maintain, you know, and I get another Moritaka in the deal. So ended up, polishing it. It's got quite a bit of patina. So these are my Moritaka knives. Awesome collection. Pile at once. So next up, you know, I really love the Kuruchi. It's just the rustic. It's just badass looking to me. That's what appeals, you know, like, and they're easy to maintain. Like, as far as like if, you know, like they're fully reactive blades, because the black finish, I don't have to worry about it too much. So, surprise, here we go. Just whip out the big beast. Right? This is a Takeda. Takeda is very well known for his little unconventional, kind of like Santoku on steroid shapes for Gyotos, and this is his Yanagiba Super Classic Series, which is ironclad. And I got this for a fucking awesome deal from Knifeware. They had it in stock, and it was before any price rate hikes for knives and stuff, so they still had it priced at like what you buy, the medium-sized Gyoto. That's like, you know what you would buy the medium-sized Gyoto for now? That's what they had it for. So, of course, you have to get the large Gyoto. And this one's the NAS model. Stainless clad. You can see the finish is a lot darker, shinier. You know. Still Takeda, still ultra thin. You can see I've worked on this a couple times, but it still has that very narrow bevel that Takeda is known for. Which, in comparison to the medium-sized Gyoto, another NAS, you can see I've had this for a bit more, and I work on it extensively to really thin it out, and that bevel gets wider, and it's very wabi-sabi, so some parts hit the stones more than others, but because even though they're thin overall, if you go like this, out of the box right here, it's a little thicker. The way he forges them, and grinds and sharpens them, so it's great for food release, but some things, denser things, it can wedge, right? So now that's been thinned out. It's like it's a super laser. Bing, bing. Bing, bing, bing. Like the sound effects. Just got to keep it interesting, I don't have any big production in my YouTube videos or anything, And it's my day off, so I'm drinking beer. I'm not a Nakiri person, but have to have one Nakiri, I guess. And if anyone it's gonna be Takeda-san. And this doesn't get used much, but when I worked in a hotel, we did high volume banquets and things like that. Like cutting veg all day. It was awesome. Like I could have to cut cases and cases of potatoes just to cut them in half, and you can just line them up and ding, 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 ding. And the food release, it was just like In-N-Out burger. One of my old chefs would say, In-N-Out burger. And yeah, made the job no problem. So those are Takedas. Now, in comparison to, like the handmade carbon steel, Karuchi finish, and whatnot, gotta have some balance in there, so I figured pick up a couple of the beaters, but still nice beaters, something more stainless, something more affordable, less to worry about. So what I did was get some Tojiro. The Tojiro DP, yeah, you wouldn't see, you probably tell by the profile, but you wouldn't know from looking at it that this is what they are, this is not what they look like out of the box, or how they feel like. Really have to round the toil, have to really round the spine. I don't really round my spines too much if they're relieved enough, because you can't have it too smooth. Just as long as it's not cause callus on my pinch grip. The spine I don't worry about too much, but yeah, the spine and the toil on these especially, and I thinned it, polished it. It's I had to replace the first one, and that's exactly what I was glad to get. Just $150 knife, Canadian dollar knife, right? Because, yeah, I lost one before, and it was super clean, mirror polished. So I have to start again on this one, and it's getting there. But, me, I like to have a matching petty to go with the Gyoto, 240 guy myself, and a 150 petty. And same thing, I just polished it, all that. So we got those Tojiro. I guess we'll go with, that's big bunch. Alright, I'll line these up, I guess. Almost there. Okay, here's how we're going to do it. That's it. So, Masakagi Koishi. These are most of my Masakagi knives. And this is the 150mm petty. And when Shibata-san, Yoshimi Kato-san, Takeda came to Edmonton through Knifeware, I asked them if they could sign some of the size, and it was awesome meeting them. Yeah. So, Masakagi Koishi, 150mm petty. And you get the Honosuke. Signed to you, but it's dark saya, so you can't really tell. And I had this one for quite a few years too, so I thinned it quite a bit. Even these are a bit on the thinner side for the Hanasuki. I find especially this is the thinner double bevel Hanasuki I got. Right, so I mean it's like thick out of the tang, fairly thick on the spine, but not as beefy as the Moritaka was. Right, we got the 240mm Kyoto. 240mm Kyoto, thinned it, polished it. Love the Big Brothers. Got the 270. Again, you can see like how Shibata-san likes to date. You know, he puts the date there. I think I got all three of them, that one, to sign it. Where the other ones I was able to get like Shibata and Kato. You know, so yeah. But then there's so much like you could feel it. Like when you're using it, like you can just feel like it's, you know, you have to be a bit more experienced when it's that thin that, you know, you say, even I'm a little worried, like, oh shit, I hope I don't damage it, but I know I'm careful enough. But it's like so thin behind the edge now. This is awesome. And this is actually a Masakagi Koishi special edition. And I got it rehandled. Or no, it was rehandled. I didn't get it rehandled, but it was rehandled. And you can see this is Megaki finish. It still has the Tsuchimi pattern. It's still Aogram Super, but it's forged by Yu Kurosaki. And that's what kind of makes it the special edition, I guess. So that one, it's a 270. And of course, got this one here, the 300mm Koishi. Oh man, yeah, like, talk about one of the first times I started to learn thinning and polishing was this one, and you can see how wavy I kind of fucked up the Shinogi line, right? But staying on track on this side. So, I mean, that kind of hurt my ego. Especially, you know, when you're first learning and stuff. But, you know, it makes me want to get another one. But it's still awesome. It's still a good knife. It's like, I work at a hotel and we do banquets and, you know, like prime rib, carving turkey. You know, like you can just, even 300 people in a carving station, you can just use one hand. Like get a really nice, thin, even slice all the way through. You know? And next up, we got some, this here's the Shimo. 150mm petty. Right? Thinned it, polished it, but I just finished it more on sandpaper and like etched it in ferrochloride. And then polished again a little bit more, like finger stones and diamond paste. This one is a 210mm Gyuro, and I haven't done anything yet to thin it, but that's pretty much next on the list after I'll show you the work in progress right now. Yeah. These are really nice and thin, and that Shirogami steel just gets super sharp, super easy. So, logic dictates. I got the 210. I don't really have many 210s. I'm a 240 guy, but I got 270s. I want to get more into I got to get into a few of the 210s. But this one I did thin and polish. Right, you can see that. Now it's patinaed up. I think in some spots and whatnot, you can still tell. Right. And I like Shimo because also the name means frost, right? So, like my dog Frosty. Frost. These ones like Howood, you know, because they get dingy looking quick, right? But I like the look of that, you know, I love the brown handles, but they have a little bit of variety, and I just put a couple light coats of lacquer, clear lacquer. If I want it, you know. If you have to remove it, you can easily remove it. But, you know, if it keeps getting dingy looking, and you keep having to sand it, You just wear it on the handle for nothing. You know, I don't have many rehandled knives, but this one, leading into that, is where you get some of the beautiful custom handles and a custom saya, spalted tamarind wood, spalted tamarind handle, brass, spacer, blackwood, ferrule. And that work is done none other by than Cody Paul, the Ginger Ninja. This guy, his work is awesome. And if you can't tell just by looking at this blade, because this isn't what it is outside of the box, this is a Masakagi Mizu, one of the old ones, forged by Katsushige Yanryu, right? Because he is retired now, and under the Yanryu-san family name, it's Takeda. And everyone's like, oh, I want the Katsushige. I want the Katsushige. You know, because he's the man who started, like, Takufu Knife Village and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, he taught his, you know, it's like, so, but everyone loves Kotetsu, and that's forged by Takeda, you know? And he makes just good knives, but yeah, I think, like, I just came across this, because I could have bought some Izus, but they didn't really appeal to me. They were, you know, very affordable. They are. But I got this one for free. Because someone who worked at Knifeware just decided he had too much stuff and he was giving things away, and that included Japanese knives. So when I was like, oh, I want one, this was like the option. Only option he had left. But I was like, shit, no way. So then it had like the Karuchi finish, but it was worn away and he never thinned it or anything. And he had it already for like 5 years, and that was like 7 years ago, you know. And he had like... It wasn't even a handle. It was like a branch or something. I don't know. Like, it was like so weird and unbalanced, but it's, you know, like easy. I took it off and thinned it and polished it. Then eventually and then rehandled it, but then eventually figured like, clean up the Karuchi, so I've cleaned that up too. So that's pretty cool. Bling bling. That's the Masakagi. Next up, got a couple of these here, just ones that I only have one of. So this one, so the 240. And this one I got as a gift from someone I know. We know each other on social media, part of the knife world. Elliot, what's up? And he's seen I had a video about my Fujiwara, and that's what got him, like, made him decide, like, oh shit, like, I gotta get a Fujiwara. So he's like, oh, I'm gonna send you something. Didn't tell me what it was. I had a feeling, of course, it's gonna be, like, knife related. Sure enough, it was. He's like, just do an unboxing video. I did one. And he's like, oh, when I found out like it was a knife, he's like, yeah, I want to see you, like, your work on it. So I've worked on it, and it's got a lot of patina on it now, but like it had like the factory, or not the factory, but like the out of the box finish was all Kasumi down, like hazy down until the edge, and it had no. This is a faux shinogi line, you know, from thinning and polishing, but. Like, so I thinned it, gave it a cleaner Kasumi finish along the blade road, and then sanded and polished the Hira. Right, it's like got the Masamoto KS profile, you know, but it's a bit thicker. It's blue #2 steel. Really fun knife to use more for meat, I find. You know, because can only work so good for so many veggies. And this here, I was actually on the same guy who gave me that Mizu. I went into Knifeware, and I was actually going to get, because I didn't have any 210s, so I decided I was going to get a Takeda, small Gyoto. But he was like, have you tried a Fujiwara? Like, do you have any of his yet? I was like, no. He's like, you really should check it out. And it was in the same price range. And he's like, you're not going to regret it. And I do not at all. But in comparison to Takeda, you can see Like they're more of a workhorse. They're a little thicker, and I thinned it. And at first, it had some microchipping after a week of use, but it's weird because I found after thinning it and then sharpening it, the microchipping's gone away. I think it's because he takes it to such a high hardness that at first it could be a little chippy. Remove that steel and like the on the outside and get to the good stuff, and it's all good. So, and then I actually got to meet Fujiwara. He came here to Edmonton and engraved what I believe is my name, or the closest equivalent to. I don't read Japanese, so I sure hope that's what it says. But I'm not gonna think that, he's gonna write something offensive. Even if it's out of humor, which would be funny, but anyhow. Okay, so now we're going on. Yeah, for now we'll go to all of these are going to be kataba, single bevel knives, and all but one or two are Hideo Kitaoka. So, till I get to the other ones, I'll just say these are all Kitaoka, and this is a Suminagashi, 180mm, white number 2, Usuba. Really wish I had got the 210 instead, but still fun, Still a nice little knife. Okay, I got last year I just ordered the Hanasuke, and of course, like I said, it's a single bevel, so it's a single bevel Hanasuke, blue number 2, and this one, of course, I ground down the factory finish away, even out the bevel, Kasumi finish, mirror polish the Hira. Okay. Ordered that one directly through Takifu Knife Store, Takifu Village Knife Store. Now, let's get into the Deba. So I got the 150mm Deba, Suminagashi, weight number 2. Right. Polished, thin and polished. Don't really use these much anymore because when I got them, I did. There was huge. This one, not so much, but yeah, a few years ago, I was working at the hotel and I had to cut fish, halibut mostly, and that's what made me like a single bevels more. Because you'd have to stay close to get each 4 of the fillets out. Staying close along the carcass. So, single bevel just felt like you're just like cleanly scooping that flesh out. And this is the 180mm. And I haven't thinned this one yet because I just bought it last year and I don't really cut much fish at home, but I wanted it to bridge the gap between the 150 and the 210mm. And this one is my favorite out of the Deba sizes to use. Because big salmon or even little sole and even big halibut, first it felt like really heavier, but well, it's still nimble enough once you get used to it. Nimble enough compared to a 270mm Deba. This one is not a Hideo Kitaoka. This one was an impulse buy a couple years ago. Sakai Nobukiyo. And it's white number 3. And I did polish it, thinned it, rehandled it, made the handle. Only kitchen knife handle I've ever made. Single piece of rosewood. Turned out pretty good. Oh, that. There we go. And of course I have to get a saya for it. Okay. Moving on. Next, we got Yanagiba. Right, iconic sushi knife. This is a 300 millimeter Megaki, weight number 2. And it had a cheap whole wood plastic handle. I honestly wasn't going to get the knife first, but that's the way it turned out. I wanted a 300 millimeter, and I was able to get it rehandled. And I had this when I fucking first learned to like mirror polish this one. I brought in a knife wire when I rehandled it. They're like, holy cow, man! Like, you put a whole mirror on that. And they're like, they were kind of blown away because they don't do that kind of stuff there too much, at least at the location here. But anyways, so that was, and this is like, I use it a lot, you know, skinning fish and portioning fish. And so just last year, I wanted to get I got its brother, 300 millimeter blue number 2, Yanagiba, and this one came with a nice rosewood handle. Just polished it. Got it at Saya. The next is the 270 millimeter Suminagashi, weight number 2. Then polish that one. Next up, I have another 270, and this is a different handle. Came again with like a whole wood handle. It's made by Haruki. And again, I did like took away the factory finish, polished it, right, rehandled it. So like kind of a beefy handle, you know. Like I would have put this even more like on a 270 Kyoto or something, like not even a 300 millimeter Yanagiba, but I don't know. Gives it a different feel, I guess, right? It's not horribly supersized, but it's made by a Ginger Ninja, Kokobolo, Ebony, or Blackwood maybe. I think it's Blackwood. So, that's pretty much like, oh, there's another Japanese knife, kitchen knife. And it's, I just got this one like a couple months ago. I haven't even done a video or post about new knife, but it's a Hatsu Kokoro Hap 40 210 millimeter Gyuto. And yeah, I've thinned, even though they're very thin out of the box and you know whatnot, like there wasn't much taper in the grind to the edge, right? So even though like Hap 40 has super awesome edge retention, you know, like when I sharpened it, it was like, even though it's thin, I just felt like, it doesn't go through product like it as easily as it could. You know, it's not hard to sharpen if you got good stones, 400 grit, I can raise a burr. It's just the burr removal. You really got to remove the burr, you know, clean up the edge. So, gonna finish working on this. And then I'll post more about that. Let's see. I bought these for work. Not Japanese. Because like, you know, you got some stuff you got to do at work. You don't want to ruin your good blades. So inexpensive, but still nice rosewood, Victorinox, paring knife, 6-inch utility, 8-inch chef knife, right, 10-inch chef knife. You know, nothing's fancy, easy to sharpen, they get a good edge, and they're tough. Okay, let's get back. I got a few more Japanese knives. They're pocket knives, though. So starting off, an iconic Japanese pocket knife is the Higo no Kami. Right, I got this one through Lee Valley Tools. It says it has a carbon steel core. I don't know exactly what kind of, it doesn't specify. But I like the brass scales, and it's got a nice Kasumi. I thinned it and put a Kasumi finish on there. Okay. Next up are Spyderco, which are an American company, but they have a factory in Japan, made in Seki City, and this one is Hap 40. sprint run, so they don't make it anymore. It was like a limited run, right? So I don't really carry this. Just gotta leave it at home. This one is VG10, and it's a standard production, so easy to replace. Not worried about it, right? A lot of the sayas I have here from Edro. Edro made sayas by Ed Ross, so he one time like threw this in, and it's an open L carbon paring knife, bow coat. I believe it's bow coat. I think or zero coat, something like that. I can't remember. Yeah. Magnetic saya, little handle on there. That's like, yeah. And then I got this is it. Another Victorinox. This one holds sentimental value because I took a meat cutting course here in Edmonton at Nate, and it was a lot of fun. Like, yeah. So the scimitar, I just use it like a pizza knife now, basically at home. All the other ones cut meat really awesome. And I took a culinary course after that, and we had like a pizza and beer night, like meet and greet. So won this as a door prize. Don't really win any kind of prizes much. I don't know. Like, so it's a knife. So I'm like, oh cool. Even though it's like, I don't even use it. I never really use it. Maybe a bit on Brett, but it's like, I don't know. Had nice polish on it, but it's got a few little rust spots. Been meaning to clean it up, you know, but with all the other things on the go, it's not a big priority. But it's kind of cool. F dick. You can at least see I got one F in dick. But that's the collection. So thanks for checking all that out and hearing me rant and rave, showing it all off.